In order to grow and scale your business, it is a best practice to hire a team. And while I do agree with it, because at the end of the day, if you want to grow and scale beyond a certain measure, you cannot be the person doing everything. At some point, you do need to cede control and hire people and bring people in. So I agree with that. However, the caveat here is if you are hiring a team, you should be so strategic with it. And I will break down what I think you should do based on my experiences and my learnings. But first and foremost, you need to be so intentional about who you're hiring and why you're hiring them. I used to just hire things out that I didn't want to do anymore or I didn't feel I should do anymore. It's just not worthy of my time, essentially. But I forgot that some of those things I outsourced were things that were my strengths. And it would be really, really, really hard to find someone that would be as good as I was and also not pay an arm and a leg for it. Because if we think about a startup small business, it is really hard to attract good talent unless you're venture backed. And even if you are venture backed, you shouldn't be spending all your money on salaries. You aren't going to be able to pay competitive salaries compared to bigger organizations. That's just a fact. You need to bring people in based on your brand. If you don't have a great brand yet or you don't have one built yet and it's not an exciting company people want to work at, that's something that also works against you. Beyond that too, you also may not have the structures and the systems set up in place to be able to handle a team. And that definitely was me. You have a lot of things working against you as a small business as you're hiring a team. And so I would be really strategic and intentional while going into it. One thing I did right though is I always recommend you start with contractors. You do not have to sign up for full-time employees from the get-go. Having the stress of full-time employees, knowing that people's livelihoods depend on you, that's the whole other level. I would definitely start with contractors, and that gives you the flexibility to try people on part-time first, make sure that they're a good fit, that you're comfortable with this expenditure, and then you can always ramp up. You always want to test new people to make sure they're a good fit before you get them to sign on the dotted line and make them a full-time employee. With all that being said, for me in my first business, hiring was not that sustainable and it wasn't the best use of my budget and my time. And I will explain why. But in this new business that I'm building, in this 2.0 version, so far it's still just me. I'm the one filming, editing the videos, working with the clients, and I'm really, really liking it. I know at some point I'm going to need to hire some help, but as of right now, I just feel like it's more sustainable. I just don't have time right now to be managing a team and thinking about another person. I want to laser focus on my business, and there will come a point where it tips and I'll need to bring in help. But I really want to sustainably grow this business and I want to teach other people to do the same thing. So that's why I want to walk the walk in this season and in this era. If that's also something you're into and you want to figure out what your version of success is, as well as your roadmap to get there, I have a new free mini course called Your Success Roadmap, where we get quiet, introspective, and figure out what your version of success is, not just what society prescribes to us. Once you figure that out, we then assess where you are now and where you want to go, how big the gap is, where the gaps are, and create a roadmap to actually get there. I'm really excited about this mini course. I don't feel like there's anything on the market because a lot of people force a version of success down your throat, whether it's doubling your revenue or building a big team or whatever it is. But we want to get quiet and figure out what you want, and then we can work backwards. I definitely didn't do that with my first business, and society really prescribes having a big team as a thing of success. And at the peak of my other business, I was managing 5 different people, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for someone that was in their 20s, had never managed people before, it was a lot. Their salaries was quite literally coming out of my bank account. I wasn't paying myself, so I could pay them. The part that would really frustrate me is that things would not be done to the standard that they should have been done. And I was spending so much time coaching and developing. While I love coaching and developing people, it was getting to be a lot. The other thing too is if you're a startup brand, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you don't have the budgets and you may not have the brand recognition. Luckily, with my past business, it was about sustainable fashion consulting, and a lot of people were into that. So there was a passion fit a lot of the times with the people on my team, which is amazing. But then at the same time, I couldn't hire people that were experts in their field and could really level it up. I was hiring a lot of really junior people. And for a lot of folks that I hired, it was their first real job or it was an internship. There was so much of my time dedicated to training them and mentoring them. And when you're a startup business, that's unfortunately the sacrifice you have to make. If you can't pay people amazing corporate wages, you are going to hire more newbie people, which is fine. It's not a bad thing, but I didn't do a good job picking the right people. If you've never hired and managed people before, it's a skill set. So it's natural that you're not going to be good at it, which is why I recommend you start with contractors. With hiring, you can have a lot of biases. If you like someone, you can be like, oh, they would be a good fit. But just because you like someone doesn't mean they would be a good employee. So make sure you try to remove hiring biases as much as possible. But also, I've heard on the internet and in podcasts, people say you should trust your gut, and you hire the wrong person, which been there, done that. It's okay. You live and you learn from your mistakes. Then you also want to have the ability to let go quickly or fire fast. That's definitely something that I didn't have in place and I wasn't able to do that. I would continue to invest more, try to mentor them more, and it was exhausting. Be really strategic around hiring contractors first, and I would assess which gaps you have in the business and what you want to take off your plate. The key here is to not take things off that you're really good at because it's going to be really hard to replace you. I would instead hire for things that you're not good at, you don't like doing. That's the stuff you want to try to get rid of. Also, on the back of that too, if you do have the budget, try to invest in experts whenever possible. Even if you're hiring a fractional CFO or a fractional COO, that's still going to be so much better if you just pay 3 hours of their time. Even if they're $100 an hour, it's still better than you paying someone else $30 an hour working for 10 hours. If half of that time they're just trying to figure it out and they're bothering you every other second with questions. You really need to weigh the pros and cons. So that's the first thing. The second thing is once you do hire them, you want to onboard them, make sure they're set up for success, of course. One thing that I always kick myself that I didn't implement earlier, but I now have this employee performance rubric so that it's really clear on both sides what the expectation is. On the employee side, they're never wondering, oh, I wonder if I'm doing a good job. Because it is in black and white. Like, did you hit your goals? Did you finish all your projects? Like, it's very black and white. When it does come time, if you do need to let someone go, it's not a surprise because if they know they're consistently dropping the ball, they're not meeting deadlines, things aren't up to par or they're not up to standard, it's not a surprise. So definitely recommend implement something like that. I will say if you're going to develop someone, you need to pick the right person, which is obviously easier said than done. With my previous business, I ran it for half a decade, and throughout the years, I feel like I only truly had one really good person. Everyone else has been okay or not great. I've learned a lot, and I think the thing you really want to look for are as follows. Again, absolutely fine. If this is an internship, it's their first job, whatever, that's not a big deal. But you want to hire for personality and characteristic that you can train and you can mold. The first thing is that they absolutely need to be passionate about what you're doing, because if you're not paying them a lot and money is not the motivator, then something else needs to be. Passion's really important. And then the next one is personality. They need to be a go-getter. They need to be really into this because you can't change that. You can teach someone skills, but you can't change their personality. Then the third thing, which is quite important, is resourcefulness. If you're a startup, you need people that can just figure stuff out. You need someone that's resourceful. That is harder to find and easier said than done. I found that the people that I would be most frustrated with is people that would just consistently come to me with problems or be really stuck. If you have people that are resourceful and can just figure it out and come to you with a problem, be like, oh, but I thought of it and I think we could do X, Y, Z. Like, that's amazing. Of course, you want someone that's a fast learner. You want someone that's able to pick things up quickly. Those are generally some characteristics. All this to say, I still think, obviously, you need to hire a team when you're ready in order to grow and scale your business in a sustainable way. However, you need to do it in a very intentional and methodical way, because if you don't, you're going to end up resentful and burnt out and out a lot of money, and you're not going to have a lot to show for it, which is what I think happened with my past business, because I outsourced the wrong things. I outsourced things I didn't want to work on anymore, and I should have just toughened it up and done it. The second thing is, like, I picked the wrong people a lot of the times, and then I wouldn't let them go quick enough. So just being cutthroat about it. And I think it's fine if you bring on the wrong people, especially if this is your first time hiring and managing people. It's going to be inevitable. You're going to learn with growth. But now I think I have a better eye for it. Thirdly, you want to manage them properly. You want to make sure they're set up for success, but you also want to know on both ends, they know what the expectations are. Those are now my best practices when it comes to hiring and managing a team. Like I mentioned, if you haven't already taken my free mini course all about building your success roadmap, I highly recommend you do so. We're going to get quiet about what success means to you and break down exactly how you're going to get there. If you are going to be potentially hiring a team, then I talk about it a little bit more as well. And you can access it at selenaho.com/roadmap or click the link down below. As always, if you have any other questions, leave them down below, and I will see you in the next video.